All right, today we're talking about car buying mistakes. So if you're getting ready to buy a new car, this is the video for you. I'm Tim Gosnell. And on this channel, we talk about personal finance and money in a way that's hopefully a little fun, not so stiff. So stick around. Subscribe to the channel if that's your jam. So today, buying a new car. The biggest mistake, we'll get right to the point, and then we're going to get to some of the solutions, is buying too much car than you can afford. And the reason that this is a huge problem, in my opinion, well, first off, Melissa, can you guess what? Well, actually, we already.
Don't lie. Don't lie.
I just realized I was just going in. I'm going into the outline of what we had planned. But here's the thing: this is not the first time we've recorded this video, so she doesn't need to guess.
But let the record reflect. I was right on in my guesses.
She did extremely well. So the average.
Wait. Let them guess in the comments, please.
Oh,
I will be checking. Yeah,
you guess.
I love a guessing game.
Honor system. We're going to believe that you are not watching it and then commenting. So pause it, comment. Used car monthly payment. What's the average? $520. So the new car average payment is $730. Again, Melissa guessed 500.
I guessed 500 and then 725.
725. So she was extremely close. She did not go over. So if this was Price is Right, she would not have been disqualified. When I see those numbers, it's not like insane, but it is a lot. And here's the perspective that I want to add to it, is that most Americans are not on track for where they need to be for retirement savings. And if most Americans were to take that same average car payment and put it towards their 401k or Roth IRA, they most likely would be on track or much closer to being on track. So this car payment is competing for our future retirement stability. And so that's why this is so big. And so now I have three kind of stages of car buying that I think will set you up for a much better situation financially, so that we can also save for retirement and we can have a usable car. You got to have them. You need a car. Unless you're in a big city with public transportation, you do need a way to get to work, to pick up the kids, to do groceries, all that kind of stuff. Like, life is really hard without a vehicle. And in a lot of places, it's next to essential. Because here there's a bus system, but it's not reliable. It's not something you're going to have to waste so much extra
it's not
time
practical. Yeah.
Just sitting there waiting for the bus. So you need it. So here's the three stages. I'm gonna just list them out, and then we're gonna go into detail of each one. The first stage is the granny car stage. The second one is a car that you like stage, and the third car is a car that you love stage. So we'll walk through each one. The granny car, this is a beloved stage to me, and I like this because it is just a way to get such a good value in car. And so for this vehicle, we're looking for a vehicle that is very well maintained. We don't care a lot about brand, make and model. We primarily care about that general make and model is a reliable vehicle. And so the reason I call it a granny car is a lot of older couples have these vehicles. Maybe they're selling it, or maybe their family's selling it because they passed away. And it's a vehicle that was not driven a whole lot. It was very well maintained. They typically have a log. Like, this is, I've had multiple of them, and they've all had logs. Yep. And it's a little notepad with little old person handwriting on it of each oil change and each brake pad change and everything that's gone wrong. They have receipts from all of the repairs. So they took really good care of it. It's a solid vehicle, and you're going to be able to get a lot of life out of that vehicle. You know, it's typically going to have low miles, and there's just going to be a lot of good life. But
she's not pretty. She's not going to be pretty.
You're not going to feel cool. You're not going to feel cool at all. But this is about having a vehicle. This is not about a status symbol at this point. So,
but wait, can you tell me, how do I know I'm in this category and I need a granny car?
You are in this category if you still have consumer debt or high interest debt. So if you still have credit cards that you're not able to pay the balance off in full, or you have high interest debt that is double digits or higher, so you're 10+% percentage of interest, then I would say, hey, this is where I recommend that you be. We're trying to get something that's inexpensive, the least expensive, and the most dependable. That's the scale that we're going for. So a couple of reasons why this is such a good spot, and what I recommend is we want to buy them from a private party and not from a dealer. Dealers, their goal is to make the most money. Like, that is their job. The salesperson is there to sell it to you for the most money that they can get. The dealer is trying to make money. They have paid a certain amount for that car, and they have a formula as far as their business operations of, like, we want to or need to make this much on that vehicle. So so they're a business, but a private party, you know, depending on the stage and where they're at, a lot of times this vehicle is old enough that it's paid off, right? So they don't have debt on it that they're like, hey, I need to at least get get this much so I can pay off the vehicle. And a lot of times they're probably not like super emotionally attached to it because they view it as a really, really cheap asset and they're just looking at getting rid of it. Another thing that you could and probably should do if you're in this stage is ask around, ask friends and family, post on your social media network of choice. Does anyone know of a vehicle that meets this criteria? And list out any criteria. I'm looking for something with relatively low miles that's dependable. And here's the thing. If someone knows you, somebody likes you and sees that and they have a vehicle that's just sitting in their driveway gathering dust, they're likely to give that to you for a good deal. And sometimes they may even give it to you. Like it's not unheard of. And actually my wife and I have done that ourselves. We had a literal granny car. It was a grandpa car. It was an Oldsmobile. It was from Sarah's grandfather who had passed away, a solid vehicle, somebody that she knew, my wife knew, were getting ready to have a baby and they needed a vehicle. And so we were able to just give that to them. It wasn't even much of a thought. It was just like, oh yeah, we could get maybe $1,000 or a couple $1,000s for it, or we can give it to somebody who's in need. And people have done that for us. And so it was a great opportunity to do that for somebody else. So ask around. I don't recommend asking, does anybody want to give me a car? But I do recommend just saying like, hey, here's the criteria. Here's what I'm looking for. Does anybody know of any good deals out there? And most likely some people will chime in with some leads. Next, we get to move up to a car you like stage. And for this stage, you know that you're in this stage when we have all of that consumer debt paid off, all of the high interest debt paid off. So you may still have a car loan. You probably still have a mortgage. You may still have some student loan debt, but you have progressed up the scale of like, we don't have all of this like.
So I don't have credit card debt and I don't have any debt that's 10% or above in interest.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yep. And so we're still at the stage though, like actually going back, I didn't address the loan. So with these first two stages, both the granny car stage and the car that you like stage, I'm okay with you getting a loan. I don't love loans. I don't, but I'm not like the Godfather.
You were stupid.
Like never get a loan and it's stupid. You need a vehicle, especially if you're working in, like we've already said. And so you got to get something, right? And I do want you to get something that's dependable, but I want you to get something that's cheap. And so the guidelines for the loan are, we want it to be less than 10%. The payment is less than 10% of your take home pay. And the loan is for less than 3 years. So less than 36-month loan. Once you meet those two criteria, if it's still not enough to get the vehicle that you want, you need to figure out how you can scrape together enough money to have a down payment to meet that criteria. So the same thing's true for this one. For the second level is that you want to be able to meet those criteria for the loan. This vehicle, it can then start to be, you can start to look at make and model. You can be like, hey, I would really like this car and with this year range. I've always liked Volvo XC60s, so I'd like one that's, a 2016 to a 2020. And then you start looking around for that wherever you can to try to find the best deal. And again, you're going to be able to typically get a better deal if you do private party. I know a lot of people, how do you guys feel about private party? Because I know some people, they feel way better buying it from dealerships. And I personally, you get better deals. I still have them looked at by mechanics, but it's just such a better value. But what's your family's?
We have mostly purchased them from dealerships, and I'm trying to think why.
Yeah, I'd love to hear why.
I think it feels safer, and all that is a feeling, not a fact.
Yeah.
Meaning, even if I take it to a mechanic, now we have somebody close to us that is a mechanic, but I didn't know anybody before that was a mechanic. So are they going to tell me the truth? I feel like a dealership has more honesty, and that's probably not true.
And again,
that's probably not true.
And that's interesting. And that is, I think, how a lot of people feel. I think, other families that are close to us, I think would feel similarly. And now as you're processing it, that's exactly my thing is like, I don't trust the dealers. Like they're professionals at salespeople, and they tend to be glossier. And I trust the average individual to be able to look them in the eye, ask them some really straightforward questions. And here's the thing. I'm not trying to say the salespeople are being necessarily dishonest, but they have 100 cars on the lot or whatever they have. They don't know all of the ins and outs of those cars. When you're buying from a private party, they've been driving that car for several years. They know if there's issues. And so if I ask them, are there any issues, I should be able to feel out pretty good if that's accurate or not. But either way, let's say that you still want to do a dealer, shop around, expand your radius, and you should still be able to find a decent deal on it. But you're looking for a specific model, a specific make. within your budget range that meet those loan requirements. So a couple of things, when you're in this stage, I don't recommend that it is a new car, and I don't recommend that it is a luxury vehicle. So we're going to leave the Beamers, the Mercedes, we're going to leave all of that for the next stage. Anything that's considered a luxury car, or if it's new, we're going to wait till we've gotten rid of most of our debt. So that brings us to a car you love. And for this stage, I want all of your debt paid off except for your house. And I want to pay cash. And that may sound crazy and out of reach to some of you. I know early on in my life, like just the culture that I grew up in was like, that wasn't a category. Like I was talking to someone about, they're like, how much was the loan, or how much, what's your payment? I was like, oh, I don't have one. And they were like, wait, you don't have a car payment? Like they didn't have a category for not having a car payment, but it is possible. So at this stage, we would have no consumer debt. We would have no loans other than our house. And that's also going to make it a lot easier to save up for something like this. Because if you're still paying towards student loans, or you're still paying for a car payment, you're not going to have a bunch of extra cash flow. So this is the peak, this is the pinnacle. And in order to get there, we really have to have most of our other debt paid off. And so I know that may be discouraging for some people. There's some families and some people who only want to buy new vehicles. But I think the lie is that you can't find a used vehicle that'll work for you. And you definitely can. And I want you to have something that's reliable, and I want you to have something that's dependable. I do recommend when you're buying used vehicles, have them looked at by a mechanic. But at the same time, we don't want to be risking our financial future to have something that is brand new. And a lot of times, frankly, a lot of these older cars, there are some really good cars out there, and some of the new cars are going to be a pain in the butt. So it's really not the worst thing in the world. So if you're looking at buying a new vehicle, hopefully you'll find some encouragement to stay within these guidelines. And by doing so, you will create some additional margin in your life. When we're not totally maxing out our income by eating it up with all of these payments, then we create margin. The lower our payments are, the more margin we have to build up emergency funds, to invest in our retirement, to save for the future. And that's what really gives us the flexibility. Because the whole reason that I'm passionate about this stuff is I want you to have some freedom and flexibility and lack of financial stress in your life. And you can do it. And this is where it comes down to. It's decisions like this that are going to impact the rest of your financial world. So you got this. I'll see you next time here on the channel.